my work is I'm a counsellor, psychotherapist. I am aware of a range of differences that are between how people see themselves, which I think will only resolve if we can accept each other's difference in some way and find ways to combine. And I think that applies very much to my views on the climate movement as well. So I'm happy to share some of my own experiences and maybe a little bit of the ideas I have as well. Thank you. Oh, and it was lovely to see the market as well. I haven't been anywhere north of Inverness for a very long time. So, yes, that was nice. Thank you. But thank you, Rosalind.
Thank you so much, Ewan. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. It's nice just to know who we're in the room with and to hear kind of the vast differences and shared experiences that kind of cut across us all. So, I mean, perhaps picking up on one of the topics that's come up so far is this idea of, somebody used the word alienation, frustrated, and Ewan has just said kind of this not fitting in. I'm wondering if any of you want to kind of go with that thread and share a bit more about your experiences of activism in general, or potentially other spaces that you've been moving through, and what that and unpack that a little bit about, or if you've had the opposite experience, that would also be interesting, of fitting in and what it means to fit into these kind of spaces and communities. I'll just open that up for whoever wants to take it. And Rika, feel free at any point to share your own experiences too. I know you've got lots of things to share.
I suppose maybe I could share two experiences. One from, maybe they don't belong together, but I remember there was one sort of eye-opener, I think, was I remember sitting with the fossil-free people in London on one occasion. We were having some sort of discussion about something or other, and I sort of, just out of a sort of spirit of interest, tried to question how do we stand when the big companies, the big oil companies like Shell, what if it's actually these big companies which are funding renewable energies, which are producing, the capital infrastructure that allows us to, I was just sort of like trying to think about a potential contradiction there between the need for renewable energy and an impulse to a kind of anti-capitalist perspective, purely and honestly in a critical, just how do we stand in relation to this? This is something we need to think about. And I remember being like shut down, like really. There was a certain amount of hostility in the circle, and I was like the matter was glossed over, and I felt a little bit ostracized and alienated, in fact, by a sort of lack of critical energy. The other example would be at the peace camp, at the anarchist camp, where day-to-day life, to be honest, was carried on a level quite separate from the activists' concerns. It was a very small camp with a very small number of permanent residents. So in the context of the everyday, you're interested in living in this community. And I say occasionally you fall into this activist discourse when you start your planning actions and designing posters and publicity and stuff. But there was a day-to-day existence, which was kind of produced by that activist stuff, but also went beyond it. It was much bigger. Like, it incorporated the place and the relationships and the sort of material existence, like it was something fundamental. And I've never felt less alienated than during those. It was only 3 weeks. I mean, again, once people started talking about the activist narratives, I started to feel that, again, that it wasn't possible to sort of think critically about things in the ways I wanted to think about them. But on the level of the everyday, this community, this really wonderful kind of anarchist commune, basically, that was, it was a really sort of liberating experience. I mean, it was a complex experience, which I could talk about at length, but just in terms of the sort of contrast between alienation and kind of feeling at home, or at least potentially feeling at home. I mean, it was a complex experience, which, but anyway, I'll leave it there for the moment. It was,
Thanks, Tom.
Can I ask something? Were there any gender observations or thoughts coming out of your, or threads that come out of those two examples?
It's a good point. That's what we're talking about, isn't it? It's what we're supposed to be talking about. It's I suppose maybe that's it. No, I don't think there was. And perhaps that's relevant. I mean, as I say, like, I do come at this question of gender as like I'm kind of interested in kind of like deconstructing selves in quite a sort of general way. I don't necessarily think about gender in a sort of specific way. No, good point. I will try and keep on topic.
No, I mean, it doesn't have to be related to gender, I suppose, but I was also wondering, what types of people were there with you? Who were they, demographically, I suppose?
Well, there are things I could say about gender, particularly regarding the peace camp. One of the peace campers was a trans woman. In fact, there was a regular visitor who was trans as well, and there was some ongoing friction between, particularly one of the campers who was a sort of long-standing, crusty anarchist, who'd been living on communes and camps for the last almost all his life. He was nearly 40. But he would use language which was occasionally offensive to people and caused quite a lot of friction. There were certainly sort of it was something which disrupted that kind of community which I was talking about to a certain extent. So this community exists sort of, in the day-to-day. But when people start talking about things, divisions emerge. And yes, that's fair enough. This question of transsexual identity was one of those areas where divisions did start to emerge.
That's an interesting observation. Thank you. Does anyone else? Yeah, Rika, go ahead.
Yeah, so this alienation is one thing, but I was very happy to hear Ian saying that we have to expect difference of each person. And